Thank you, Jeffrey. This comes to the end of morning session of the Arunachala Ashram program. Now, we are going to hand it over to the Washington, D.C. Satsang group. Naga?
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya. Welcome to every one of you, Bhagavan's devotees, to Washington, D.C. Slot for today's Advent Day. So we are going to kick off today's Advent Day from Washington, D.C. by having a talk from Sri Ram Mohanji. He's going to talk about descent of the divine, so which is aptly named, and it is more coinciding with our topic of the day. Without any delay, let me play this reading.
In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a beautiful Antaryasya Bhir Vidutamiram Jyotirmayam Saswatam Hanam Prapti Virajate Viramatam Majnana Manmulayan Pasyan Viswamapita Mallasatiyo Viswasya Pare Para Tasmai Sri Ramanaya Lokaguravi Sokasya Hantre Namaha. This is the great occasion, the descent of the divine in our midst in human form to guide us. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a beautiful sloka. Tavakathamritam taptajivanam kavibhiriditam kalmashapaham Sravana Mangalam Srimadhadadam Bhui Grundite Bhurita Janaha. The nectar of thy excellence revives the scorched spirit of man. It purifies the sinner, while holy men live on it. To hear it itself is auspicious and peace granting. They are real gift makers who spread their message far and wide. That is what the Satsang is doing today. The word Advent in the Western world normally refers to the period preceding Christmas, leading to the advent of Christ in human form amidst the seekers. But in Arunachala, Advent refers to the day in which the great master of all times, our own Bhagavan, entered his true abode, the sacred Arunachala. The first, there were two advents of Shiva, we can say, figuratively. The first advent refers to the eons ago when Shiva descended as the pillar of fire to settle the dispute between Vishnu and Brahma. Figuratively, the mind and the prana. The second advent on the 1st of September in the year 1896, when a small lad, young lad of 16 years, entered at the portals of his earthly abode, the Arunachala temple, to settle not the dispute of ego between Brahma and Vishnu, but to settle forever the dispute as to who am I, to give lucid direction to toiling humanity, how to find answer to the vexing dispute. Who am I? Am I body, mind, or spirit? About a month earlier, he had already had answer to this. He has gone through his what is called the death experience or simulated death experience, trying to find out what is death. The lad of 16, with very little spiritual learning of lore, he embarked on a harrowing enterprise of discovering the truth behind death. For this, very interestingly, he chose hitherto uncharted path, which was not mentioned in any Upanishads or Veda or Shastras. The path, experimenting directly with himself. The entire experiment was performed with such precision that even what you call every spirit, every atom of his was brought into play by stilling the prana and silenced mind. My silenced mind and silenced will. Any sense of an individual existence was brought to nil. No object was there. Everything was dissolved. Aided and guided by the by the divine, all the energies that condensed into the sense of I were gathered together. In a flash, the perfect divine plunged into the spiritual heart. The advent of the divine, what you call the Satori or Satyanipadam in the Siddhanta, in torrential flow, swept away the speck of the embedded individual consciousness. Anything was left. It dissolved into the ocean of infinity. The drop became the ocean. No, truly speaking, the ocean became the drop. In the words of poet Kabir, he says in a poem, very similar. A drop falling into the ocean, everybody knows. But the ocean becoming the drop, only the rare gifted ones know. The voyage of to his spiritual home, provided, egged on by so many things, which led him to nirvana, the state of abiding in the unborn eternal Brahman, the transcendented subject facing itself anywhere and everywhere. That is a transcendented subject. I is the transcendented subject. From confined to a mortal frame, so far, now it is seen everywhere, experienced everywhere and everything. Henceforth, ceaseless abidance in the self became his nature. He entered the entire experience is indeed a grand scenario of the supremacy of divine grace over everything else. After that event, we see the continuance of the divine play of grace. It was too evident that Arunachala plays the part. He is the grand choir maker. There was the providential provision of money for his journey by his brother, the delayed arrival of the train, the unsought for course correction by the Maulvi in the train, free meals provided by the hotelier, a drummer, and a Bhagavatar. Everybody comes, unsought for. Arunachala clearing the temple of all others, doors of the sanctum sanctorum opening on its own accord, as happened to Abbar and Jnanasamandar centuries later in the Vedaranyam temple. Bestowed of clear, Vyakatma Darshanam. He was alone. He and Bhagavan were only, Arunachala were only present. Nobody else was. Then the boy merged into the mountain. Then comes the free transfer, the offer of free transfer by a barber. The chance rain providing the customary bath, ritual bath. Then the list goes on and on. The play of the divine grace on the boy on the advent. After a stay of 22 years on the hill, he comes down to what is now known as Sri Ramana Arunachala, Sri Ramanashramam. Henceforth, ceaseless abidance in the self became his nature. The entire episode is evident of a grand scenario. And the divine play continues. He was to radiate the splendor of knowledge. The ashram, in course of time, became home for countless millions on their pilgrimage through life. The boy who renounced home, family, and security became the master, father, mother, guide, God, and close friend to countless devotees there. He renounced everything, but he became everything to everybody. He, the sky of awareness, had no belongings, yet everyone surrendered their souls themselves, looked upon itself as belonging to him. All souls belonged to him was the devotees' attitude towards him. Like a swarm of bees, countless millions entered the fragrant flowers of his words, gathered and benefited. For him, the universe was but a clear garden, a garden of divinity. In the ashram, everyone feels, this is the word from the Upanishad, Swargada Adhikartharam Sthapanam Amritam Drishyam Iva Agatosmi. That means that abode of repose, transcending heaven as if it were the deathless heart center itself. I seem to have resolved into it. Bhagavan virtually speaks of grace in these words, reveling in the bliss of self and silence. No thought has entered. He has renewed his presence repeatedly, everywhere, every moment. He was living in a solitary cave in the slopes of Arunachala, far from the madding crowd. But what a miracle! Living in the solid cave earlier, he helped the mankind unknown to itself. His radiation spread and attracted like bees coming to the flower. Kapali Shastri, in his diary entries, mentions about Bhagavan trying to probe the way of dissolving body in the component elements. But it happens that Bhagavan at times he feels bored. He says, I will give up my body. I will dissolve it into elements and dissolve in the universe. But the great mother, the divine mother intervenes. He is ultimately acquiesced to the divine will with a total abandonment. First he wanted to dissolve his body. I felt the mother does not want me. He wants me to serve. So with the total abandonment, just an absolute acceptance. Ninnishtam, yennishtam, he himself says. I don't want to decide anything. Whatever you decide, that is my desire. I am merged into you. Your will is my pleasure. Such a jnani, his every act performed he feels every act which is willingly done is less than the perfection of stillness of being, but proving the proving the Upanishadic verity, Upanishadic statement. Very beautiful statement. Ardhram Jwalati, very small word. It has a very profound meaning. It means wet is fire. Ardhram is wet. Jwalati means fire. Ardhram Jwalati. Bhagavan, the incandescent fire of jnana, melted away in infinite compassion for the suffering humanity. Not only humanity, suffering, flora and fauna, everything. He saved a fetus which is inside an egg to come out of its travails and come out as a bird just by strapping it around his hand with a towel. He is the flame of love, becoming as the savior of knowledge, savior of the world, and he became the salver of knowledge. The flame of love becomes the salver of knowledge. After the advent, his story of the infinite self became the story of the devotees. His story is our story. And the whole world. Divine grace became the mission for his advent. That is, this advent is a divine mission. Bhagavan's death experience, a remarkable event of Sadhya Jyoda Mukti we have mentioned. So, it bestowed on him the spiritual opulence. His total withdrawal and sitting in self-absorption in various places in and around the temple were just to naturalize his fathomless experience he gained in the advent into the Arunachala temple. The fathomless experience of the absolute, the infinite, the most poignant experience being in the Patala Ganga, where he was not even aware of vermin seeping into his body. He was the embodiment of what Upanishad described as Bhuma. Nalpe Sukhamasti, Yove Bhuma Tatsukam. In Bhuma, the infinitude alone lies the bliss. Nave Bhuma Tatsukam. He is revealing and reveling in the depths of silence. The famous statement we make at the end of every prayer, every puja, na karmana na prajaya dhanena tyagena ke amritatva manasohu. What does it mean? It means, it affirms, what it says? He has attained that Sat, which is greater than heaven and shining all alone in the heart. Ramrita parimuchyanti sarve. The Purusha Sikta declares, it is a famous statement, while one part of him, very curious statement, talked about the Purusha, while one part of him constantly creates the universe. 3/4 of that remain in the high heaven, unseen and unaware, other being unaware of it. Bhagavan's life after the advent became the testimony to the interpretation of the 3 parts of his existence. They also come and dissolve in the world to help the universe to evolve. This is the message of the advent. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Welcome back to DC event, and thanks Ramahanji for his beautiful talk as usual. Sri Dakshinamurti Stotra. It's written by Adi Sankaracharya. It is most profound Advaita Vedanta and extraordinarily beautiful poetry. Verses in this stotra are rich in Vedantic teachings. At the same time, they are presented in very elegant, poetic manner. It is a wonderful prayer It's a prayer to the Lord Shiva. It is filled with pious Vedantic teachings. So I would like to request Skanda to sing Dakshinamurti Stotra.
तुल्यं निजान्तर्गतम् पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिर्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानम् एवाद्वयम् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः माया कल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतम् मायावीव विजृम्भयत् यपि महा योगी वयस्वच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये यस्यैव स्फुरणं सदात्मकम् असत्कल्पार्थकं भाष्यते साक्षात् तत्त्वमसीति वेदवचसा यो बोधयत्याश्रितान् यत् साक्षात्करणात् भवेन पुनर् आवृत्तिर्भवाम्भोनिधौ तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नानाचित्रघटोदर स्थितिमः दीपप्रभाभास्वरम् ज्ञानं यस्य तु चक्षुरादिकरण द्वारा बहिः स्पन्दते जानामीति तमेव भान्तम् अनुभाति एतत् समस्तं जगत् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये देहं प्राणम् अपि इन्द्रियाणि अपि चलां बुद्धिं च शून्यं विदुः स्त्रीबालान्त जडोपमास्तु अहमिति भ्रान्ताभृशं वादिनः मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पितमः व्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये राहुग्रस्तदिवाकरेन्दुसदृशः माया समच्चादनात् सन्मात्र करण उपसंहरणतः यो बुद्धसुषुप्तः पुमान् प्रागस्वप्समिति प्रबोधसमये यः प्रत्यभिज्ञायते तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बाल्यादिष्वपि जाग्रदादिषु तदा सर्वासु अवस्थास्वपि व्यावृतासु अनुवर्तमानम् अहमिति अन्तःस्फुरन्तं सदा सवातनं प्रकृति करोति भजदं यो मुद्रया भद्रया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये विश्वं पश्यति कार्यकारणतया स्वस्वामी सम्बन्धतः शिष्याचार्यतया दतैव पितर्पुत्रादि आत्मना भेदतः स्वप्ने जागृति वाय ईश पुरुषः माया परिभ्रामितः तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये भूरम्बांशनलोनिलोम्बरमहर् नातो हिमांशु पुमान् इत्याभाति चराचर आत्मकमिदं यस्यैव मूर्त्यष्टकम् नान्यत् किञ्चन विद्यते विमशदां यस्मात् परस्माद् विभो तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये सर्वात्मत्वमिति स्फुटीकृतमिदं यस्मादवुष्मिन् स्तवे तेनास्य श्रवणादर्थमननात् ध्यानात् च संकीर्तनात् सर्वात्मत्वं विभूतिसहितं स्यात् ईश्वरत्वं स्वतः सिद्ध्येतत् पुनरष्टधा परिणतं च ऐश्वर्यमव्याहतम्। ओम नमो भगवते श्री रमणाय।
Thank you, Skanda. The next is Devika Lotra by Barbara G. This work is one of the Upa-agamas, explains the supreme wisdom to be attained by mature souls and their mode of life, as expounded by the Supreme Lord Shiva to Devi Parvati. It is the essence of all Agama Sastras on matters of spiritual knowledge. I'd like to request Barbara Ji to read about Devika Lotra.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. The reading is selections from the Devi Kalotara, which Bhagawan translated from Sanskrit into Tamil while he was residing in the Virupaksha cave. He wrote the following introduction. This work is one of the Upa-agamas and explains the supreme wisdom to be attained by mature souls and their mode of life, expounded by the Supreme Lord Shiva to Devi Parvati. It is the essence of all Agama Shastras on matters of spiritual knowledge. This is verily the boat which can rescue the mortal struggling hard, sinking and rising in the sorrowful ocean of samsara, and takes them by the direct path to the shore of liberation. Let all earnest seekers after truth, instead of groping in the dark, bewildered and losing their way, adopt the aid of this direct path and reach the supreme state of bliss and peace. Devi Parvati. O Lord of all celestial beings, I yearn to know that path of supreme wisdom and the means by which one can attain liberation, so that all the people in the world may attain salvation. Out of your compassion, I beg you to teach it to me. Lord Shiva. O Queen among women, so that everyone may attain knowledge, I shall clearly explain to you today the highest knowledge and the discipline to be followed by which discerning seekers will attain liberation, which is free from any blemish and is difficult to describe. The means by which the mind, which is restless and moves about quicker than the wind, can be brought under control is indeed the means to liberation and is good for those who seek the permanent reality. It is pure consciousness and the state of firmness. It alone is the righteous duty to be observed by discerning seekers. It alone is the pilgrimage to holy waters. It alone is charity. It alone is austerity. Know that there is no doubt about this. When the mind moves even a little, that is samsara. When the mind abides firmly and motionlessly, that is mukti. This is certain. Therefore, know that the wise man must hold his mind firm by supreme self-awareness. For those whose minds are constantly externalized and clinging to objects, the seeds of bondage invariably take root. If the outward wandering mind is turned inwards to stay in its natural state, one overcomes suffering in the world. Unite with that one totality, which is all pervasive and which has no within or without, up or down, midway or sideways. It assumes all the forms in creation, and yet itself is formless. It is self-luminous and can only be known by itself. In reality, there is neither cause nor effect, nor any action, nor does anything actually ever happen. There is neither a world nor a dweller in it. The individual and his attachments are in fact non-existent. The one who fails to meditate on this great all-pervading void, formless and vast like the sky, gets entangled in samsara like the silkworm caught in its own cocoon. Understand this. Living beings of whatever sort undergo misery over and over again. Hear it from me. In order to avert all this suffering and sorrow, one should meditate constantly and without any break on the great void. Good conduct, various rituals, and the disciplines associated with them have been prescribed in order that knowledge might be born in the seeker. One should abandon all paths which are based on external supports and meditate solely on that reality which is beyond the world. The mind, hankering after things of the world, is more restless than a monkey. If one controls it from wandering after external things and holds it in the void of non-matter, one will attain liberation directly. This complete wholeness pervades inside and outside all creations like ether, merging with them, and is itself formless. Oh, my beloved, those who are submerged in this supreme bliss become that supreme bliss themselves. See how wonderful. The outgoing mind dissolves of its own accord when deprived of anything to hold on to. Just as a fire dies down and goes out when deprived of fuel. Turn away from confusion, delusion, ignorance, dreaming, sleeping, and waking, for the Supreme is different from the gross body, different from subtle prana, different from the mind, intellect, and ego. Meditate on that consciousness and become one with it. Due to sleep and due to thought, the mind always loses its sharpness, its foolishness increases, and it goes to ruin. Awakening this mind with effort and without allowing it to wander, establish it in the state of self. Persevere in this effort by fixing the mind again and again in its natural state. When once the mind becomes steady, it should not be disturbed in any way. There is no need to think of anything else. One should fix the mind firmly in that state and keep it still. By stilling one's mind, restless like the wind, one fulfills life's highest purpose, the aim of all spiritual study. Dispelling all attachments and fixing the mind firmly in the heart, pure, clear awareness arises. Persist in the practice of that awareness. Those who meditate on the Supreme Void and become established in it through constant practice will reach the Supreme Abode. It is beyond birth and death. I am pure awareness, immaculate, perfectly liberated, and forever present everywhere. I am unlimited. No one can grasp me or leave me. I am not determinable by logic or reasoning. I am free from sorrow and always of the nature of Brahman. Beginningless consciousness is unborn, whole, formless, pure, and beyond the world. It resides forever in its natural home in the cave of the heart. It is beyond any comparisons and completely unattached. It cannot be comprehended by the mind, nor can it be seen or felt by the senses. Repeatedly see thus, I am He, the eternal, omnipresent reality which is Brahman. Meditating thus for a long time, whoever abides imperturbably will become the Supreme Brahman, thereby attaining immortality. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara-ji. Next, I would like to invite PSG for us singing.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Today I am going to sing a small song that I composed and also set to music in the rag, behag. At least that's what I think. மதுரை திருநகரில் தொடங்கி மதுரை திருநகரில் தொடங்கி தீர்வு அண்ணாமலை க்ஷேத்திரத்தில் முடிந்த பயணம் மதுரை திருநகரில் தொடங்கி தீர்வு அண்ணாமலை க்ஷேத்திரத்தில் முடிந்த பயணம் மதுரை திருநகரில் தொடங்கி தீரு அண்ணாமலை கஷேத்திரத்தில் முடிந்த பயணம் மதுரை திருநகரில் தொடங்கி ரமணரின் ஞான பாதை ரமணரின் ஞான பாதை அகிலோர் அனைவருக்கும் ரமணரின் ஞான பாதை அகிலோர் அனைவருக்கும் வகுத்து கொடுத்த வழிமுறை நாம் பற்றி வகுத்து கொடுத்த வழிமுறை நாம் பற்றி அடைந்திடுவோம் பரமானந்தம் அடைந்திடுவோம் பரமானந்தம். அவர் பெயர் நினைந்து அவர் புகழை பாடி அவர் பெயர் நினைந்து அவர் புகழை பாடி அவரால் நாம் அடைந்த அறிவினை கொண்டு அவரால் நாம் அடைந்த அறிவினை கொண்டு மறுபிறப்பென்னும் தலையினை துண்டிக்க மறுபிறப்பென்னும் தலையினை துண்டிக்க அவர் பதமே சரணடைவோமே அவர் பதமே சரணடைவோமே. அவர் அருள் சுரந்து அவர் கருணையாலே அவர் அருள் சுரந்து அவர் கருணையாலே நமக்குள் அவர் இறங்கி ஆன்ம விசாரத்தால் நமக்குள் அவர் இறங்கி ஆன்ம விசாரத்தால் நம்மை நாம் உணர்ந்து அவரிடம் ஒன்றிடுவோம் நம்மை நாம் உணர்ந்து அவரிடம் ஒன்றிடுவோம் மதுரை திருநகரில் தொடங்கி தீரு அண்ணாமலை கஷேத்திரத்தில் முடிந்த பயணம் மதுரை திருநகரில் தொடங்கி ஓம் நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீ ரமணாய.
Thank you, PSG. Next, we're going to invite Kiranji for Ramana Desikam. So it's noted that Desikam, while it has become a family name in many contexts, means someone who knows the territory or direction. And in the Sanskrit sound, dik, from which came the disha, meaning direction, and Desikam meaning one who knows the direction in an area. So with that, I would like to invite Kiranji for singing Ramana Desikam.
This is Ramana Desikam by Sri Kavyakhanta Ganapati Muni. Ekameva hridi santatam sakala nama rupa gunavarjitam bhavahinamiva madbhutam manasi bhavaye Ramana Desikam sattva buddhi phaladayakam sakala chitta moha bhavanasakam ज्ञानमोदकरमीश्वरं मनसि भावये रमणदेसिकं मोहमित्थमिह सन्ततं निशितचित्तमूलपरिमाह्निकं संविदेकरणरूपिणं मनसि भावये रमणदेसिकं वेदसारपरिमार्जितं सकलयोगचित्तसुमपूजितं तत्त्वरूपमयि भासते मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् चित्तशान्तिदमदायकं झुडिति आत्मतत्त्वरसबोधकम् ईशरूपमयि भासते मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् पञ्चकोशपरिवेष्टितं विषयपञ्चसर्पविषभेषजम् पञ्चबाणबलनाशकं मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् तत्सदेव भुवि साम्प्रतं रुचिरमर्च्यरूपमयि धारयम् दृश्यते सकलयोगिनं मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् मौनतत्त्वरसबोधकं रहसि मोदमानवपुषं परम् मानरोषरिपुदाहकं मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् काव्यकण्ठकविसूरिण स्तुतिभिरीससूनुरिति घोषितम् सोणशैलतटवासिनं मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् भासते हृदयमण्डले महितबोधभानुरिह साम्प्रतम् मोहरूपघनमाचकं मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम्. I'm going to read a chapter 12 from Mahatapasvi, Biography of Ganapati Muni, which tells us how Desikam was created. Vande Sri Ramanershe Acharyasya Padabjam Yo me darshayadisham bhantam dvantamatitya. I bow to the lotus feet of the Master, Rishi Sri Ramana, who showed me God, who shines beyond the darkness of ignorance. From Sri Ramana Chatvarimsat. Ramanopadesa, Ramana's teaching, was imparted to Ganapati on the Arunachala hill. Ramana Maharshi was the Acharya and the Sishya was the great scholar Kavyakantha Ganapati Sastri. When Sri Ramana Maharshi taught the direct path to enlightenment, the Hindu race was steeped in foolish orthodoxy and moving away from the sacred knowledge of the self. Manaswami blessed Kavyakantha and taught him with ever so soft words the essence of tapas. Ganapati's heart was filled with unparalleled joy. Sitting in Virupaksha cave, he meditated on this superb teaching of his master and rendered it into a Sanskrit sloka for the benefit of mankind. Ahamiti kuta ayatiti vicharayannudayasthane linam manaha tadeva tapaha japyamanasya mantrasya dhvanihi kuta udeti vicharayanyasthane linam bhavet manaha tadeva tapaha. Search within for the place where the I thought rises. The mind will subside there. That is tapas. Repeating a mantra, search for the source of the sound of the mantra and the mind will subside. That is tapas. In verse, Ganapati Muni described the reason of the advent of Sri Ramana Maharshi. O Great One, Thou hast manifested Thyself to save those who are satisfied with only the intellectual grasp of scriptural texts by bestowing on them true knowledge of the self. From Ramana Gita. Ganapati had told Maunaswami that he performed mantra japa. Therefore, the Swami's instructions were framed as a means to experience the splendor of the self by tracing the source of both the I thought and the sound of the mantra. Ganapati was thrilled. Waves and waves of bliss rose up and soaked his frame. He sat there at the feet of the sage and meditated until evening. He was completely satisfied He was convinced that no ordinary person could have imparted to him such a message. He made inquiries about the name of the Swami from the attendant. Finding it was Venkatraman, he made it brief and beautiful as Ramana and acclaimed the Maunaswami as Maharshi, the great seer. Next day, Vasishta Ganapati Muni wrote to his intimate disciples, I have found my master, my guru. He is the sage of Arunachala known as Brahmana Swami. He is no ordinary Swami. He is a great seer, a mighty spiritual personality. To me and to you all, he is Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. Let the whole world know him as such. When Ganapati Sastri was staying with Bhagavan, Bhagavan would address him in this respectful manner in which elders are addressed. Bhagavan used to address even monkeys in a respectful way. Ganapati was 1 year senior to Bhagavan. But this practice pained Ganapati, and he pleaded with Bhagavan to desist from this practice and begin to call him by name using thou instead of you. Bhagavan then thought of addressing him as Nayana, which could be used to mean both a father or a child. The solution satisfied both the disciple and the guru. Bhagavan, however, refrained from using thou. End of chapter 12. This small sloka was written by Swami Pranavananda. Omkara Rupudai, Omkara Vachudai, Omkara Bodhiyai Opuvani, Tatvardha Vediyai, Tattvaswarupudai, Tattvardhamunujappadanaruvani, Nityudai, Suddhudai, Nirmalajnanudai, Satya Swarupudai, Sakshi Aguchu, Brahmamai, Brahmaku Brahmambu Telugu, Subramanya Devudai, Prabaluvani, Arunagiri Yandu Vasamai Amaruvani, Saranumani Edi Bhaktula Sakuvani, Ramana Muninadu Mrukkudu Vimala Charitu, Nityuda Tadunamadi Nilachugaka. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Thank you, Ranji. Ananda is bliss. Ananda is happiness. The happiness that's sought in all feelings and desires. That happiness is not a passing state of mind. That I would like to invite Arjit for singing Ananda Swarupa.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Ananda Swarupa Pandava Ashrita Palaka Arunachala. Ananda Swarupa Pandava Ashrita Palaka Arunachala. Arunachala Siva Arunachala Siva Arunachala Siva Arunachala. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Vidhimadava Vandita Charana, Vidhimadava Vandita Charana, Pratyaksha Parama Arunachala, Pratyaksha Parama Arunachala. Jagadita Karana Virajada Chalarupa, Jagadita Karana Virajada Chalarupa, Vimala Sri Arunachala, Vimala Sri Arunachala, 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 Arunachala. Ananda Swarupa Bandava Ashrita Palaka Arunachala. Ananda Swarupa Bandava Ashrita Palaka Arunachala. Arunachala Siva Arunachala Siva Arunachala Siva Arunachala. अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल संसारानवतारक मूर्ते संसारानवतारक मूर्ते स्मरणे साक्षात् मोक्षकरा स्मरणे साक्षात् मोक्षकरा अपित कुचाम्बा समेत मूर्ते अपित कुचाम्बा समेत मूर्ते तेजोमय श्री अरुणाचला तेजोमय श्री अरुणाचला 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 शिव अरुणाचला अरुणाचला शिव अरुणाचला अरुणाचला शिव अरुणाचला बांधव आश्रित पालक अरुणाचला आनंद स्वरूप बांधव आश्रित पालक अरुणाचला अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचला अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचला 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 ओम नमो भगवते श्री रमणाय.
Thank you, Arjit. That was very good. Next, I would like to invite PSG for Arunachalashtakam. Arunachalashtakam is an 8-stanza stotram praising Lord Shiva or Arunachala Shiva. PSG, please.
Arunachalashtakam. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Arunachalashtakam by Bhagavan is what I am going to chant. அறிவரும் கிரியன அமர்த்தரும் அம்மா அதிசயம் இதன் செயல் அறிவரிதார்க்கும் அறிவரு சிறு வயதது முதல் அருணா சலமிக பெரிதன அறிவினிலங்க அருகிலன் அதன் பொருள் அது திருவண்ணா மலையன ஒருவரால் அறிவுற பெற்றும் அறிவினை மருளுரு தருகினில் ஈர்க்க அருகுறும் அமயமித சலமக் கண்டேன் கண்டவன் எவன் என கருத்தினில் நாட கண்டவன் இன்றிட நின்றது கண்டேன் கண்டனன் என்றிட கருத்தெழவில்லை கண்டிலன் என்றிட கருத்தெழுமாறேன் விண்டிது விளக்கிடு விரலுருவோனார் விண்டிலை பண்டு நீ விளக்கினை என்றால் விண்டிடாதும் நிலை விளக்கிடவென்றே விண்டலம் அச்சலம விளங்கிட நின்றாய் நின்னையான் உருவென எண்ணியே நன்ன நிலமிசை மலையனு நிலையினை நீதான் உன்னுரு அருவென உன்னிடின் விண்ணோ குறவுள கலை தரும் ஒருவனையொக்கும் உன்னுரு உணலற உன்னிட முன்னீர் ஒரு சரு கரையுரு என உருவோயும் என்னையான் அறிவுற என்னுருவேரே திருந்தனை அருணவான்கிரி என இருந்தோய் இருந்தொளிர் உனை விடு தடுத்திடர் தெய்வம் இருட்டினை விளக்கெடு தடுத்திடலே கான் இருந்தொளிர் உனை அறி உறுத்திடற்கென்றே இருந்தனை மதம் தோறும் விதவித உருவாய் இருந்தொளிர் உனை அறிகிலரெனில் அன்னோர் இரவியின் அறிவரு குருடரேயாவார் இருந்தொளிர் இரண்டர எனதுல தொன்றாய் இணையரும் அருணமமலையெனும் மணியே மணிகளில் சரடன உயிர் தொரு நானா மதம் தோறும் ஒருவன மறுவினை நீதான் மணி கடைந்தன மனமெனும் கல்லின் மறுவர கடைய நின்னருள் ஒளி மேவும் மணியொளி என பிரிதொரு பொருட்பற்று மறுவுரலிலை நிழற்படித கட்டின்பின் மணியொளி பட நிழல் பதியுமோ மறுபொருள் அருண நல் ஒளிமலை உண்டோ உண்டொரு பொருளறி ஒளியுளமே நீ உலதுனில் அலதிலாதிசய சக்தி நின்றனு நிழ நிறை நினைவறிவோடே நிகழ்வினைச் சுழலில் அந்நிலை ஒளியாடி கண்டன நிழற்சக விசித்திரம் உள்ளும் கண்முதற் பொறி வழி புறத்தும் மொற்றில்லான் நின்றிடு நிழல் பட நிகரருட்குன்றே நின்றிட சென்றிட நினைவிடவின்றே இன்றகம் எனு நினைவெனிற்பிற ஒன்றும் இன்றது வரை பிற நினைவெழிலார்க்கர் கொன்றகம் உதிதலம் எதுவென உள்ளாழ்ந்து துளத்தவி சுரினொரு குடை நிழற்கோவே இன்றகம் புறமிரு வினையிரல் சன்மம் இன்பு துன்பிருள் ஒளி எனும் கனவிதயம் அன்றகம் அசலம நடமிடும் அருண மலையெனும் மலையருமருள் ஒளி கடலே கடல் எழும் எழிலியார் பொழி தரு நீர்தான் கடநிலை அடைவரை தடை செய்யின் இல்லா உடலுயிர் எனில் எழும் உனையுருவரையில் உரு பல வழிகளில் உழலினு நில்லார் இடவெளி அலையினு நிலையிலை புல்லு கிட நில மலதிலை வரு வழி செல்ல கடனுயிர் வரு வழி சென்றிட இன்ப கடலுனை மறுவிடும் அருணபுதரனே கடலுனை மறுவிடும் அருணபுதரனே. ஓம் நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீ ரமணாய.
Thank you, PSG. It is important for us to hear again and again the essence of Bhagavan's teachings, which is packed into something called Upadesha Saram. So I would like to invite Devika to sing Upadesha Saram next.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Karturanyaya प्राप्यते फलं कर्म किं परं कर्म तज्जडं कृतिमहो ददौ पतनकारणं फलमशाश्वतं गतिनिरोधकम् ईश्वरार्पितं नेच्छया कृतं चित्तशोधकं मुक्तिसाधकं कायवान्मना कार्यमुत्तमं पूजनं जपास् चिन्तनं क्रमात् जगदहीष्यति युक्तसेवनम् अष्टमूर्तिभृत् देवपूजनम् उत्तमस्तवत् उच्चमन्तदा चित्तजं जप ध्यानमुत्तमम् आजदारया स्रोतसासमम् सरलचिन्तनं विरलतपरं भेदभावनात् सोऽहमित्यसौ भावनाभिता पावनीमता भावशून्यसत् भावशुस्थिति भावनाबलात् भक्तिरुत्तमा हृत्स्थले मना स्वस्थता क्रिया भक्तियोगभो दाश्चनिष्ठितम् वायुरोदनात् लीयते मना जालपक्षिवद् रोदसाधनं चित्तवायवस् चित्क्रियायुता शाखयोर्द्वयी शक्तिमूलक विनाशने उभयरोदने गतं पुनर्भवति नो मृतं प्राणबन्धनात् लीनमानसम् एकचिन्तनान् नाशमेत्यत नष्टमानसो कृस्तयोगिना कृत्यमस्ति किं स्वस्थितिं यथा दृश्यवारितां चित्तमात्मना चित्वदर्शनं तत्त्वदर्शनं मानसं तु किं मार्गनीकृते नैव मानसं मार्गार्जवत् वृत्तयस्वहं वृत्तिमाश्रिता वृत्तयो मनो विद्यहं मन अहमयं कुतो भवति चिन्वत ऐपतत्यहं निजविचारणम् अहमिनाशपाजहम् अहं तया स्फुरतिहृत्स्वयं परमपूर्णसत् इदमहं पदात् भिक्षमन्वहम् अहमिलीनके प्यलयसत्तया विग्रहेन्द्रिया प्राणदीतमा नाहमेकसत् तच्चडं ह्यसत् सत्त्वभाषिका चित्त्ववेतरा सत्तया हि चेत् चित्तया ह्यहम् ईशजीवयोर्वेषदीपिता सत्स्वभावतो वस्तु केवलं वेषहानता स्वात्मदर्शनम् ईशदर्शनं स्वात्मरूपता आत्मसंस्थिति स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्वयाद् आत्मनिष्ठिता ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीन चेत् ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञानमन्तरं किं स्वरूपम् इत्यात्मदर्शने अव्यया भवा पूर्णचित् सुखं पन्दमुख्यति तं परं सुखं विन्दति हजि वस्तुदैविका अहमपेतकां निजविभानकां महदिदं तपो रमणवागीयम् Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Thank you, Devika. That was well signed. And prostration to the divine. So if you interpret it in Tamil, it'll be Unake Namaskaram. I would like to invite Bhaskar and Malapi to sing Unake Namaskaram. Next.
And Naga, can we skip this?
Sure, yeah. So The next one is the two to the luminous one, one full of grace, the Supreme Person. The poem has been written. It's called Jyoti Swarupa. I would like to request Subraja to sing Jyoti Swarupa next.
Jyoti Swarupa Punavatara, Jyoti Swarupa Punavatara, Pavako Jwala Ramaneshwara, Pavako Jwala Ramaneshwara, Atma Rama Mahabhaga, Atma Rama Mahabhaga, Purushottama Ramaneshwara, Purushottama Ramaneshwara, Tapomaya Timirahara, Tapomaya Timirahara, Mahotsaha Ramaneshwara, Tapomaya Timirahara, Mahotsaha Ramaneshwara, Trigunatita Sukumara, Trigunatita Sukumara, Kripa Puna Ramaneshwara, Kripa Puna Ramaneshwara, Jyoti Swarupa Punavatara, Pavako Jwala Ramaneshwara, Atma Rama Mahabhaga, Purushottama Ramaneshwara, Tapomaya Timirahara, Mahotsaha Ramaneshwara, Mahotsaha Ramaneshwara, Trigunatita Sukumara, Kripa Puna Ramaneshwara, Jyoti Swarupa Punavatara, Pavako Jwala Ramaneshwara, Pavako Jwala Ramaneshwara. Oh, Namo Ramana Shri Ramaya.
Thank you. To the Shiva, the bestower of bliss, the master, the store of all virtues, I surrender. To the indweller of my heart lotus, I surrender. To the refuge and Lord, I surrender. Prapatti is a word for surrender. So I would like to invite Gopika to sing Prapatti Ashtakam next.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Avattapuryam janitam pavatye pandesha deshe vitinam pavatye sonachalappastacharam pavatye bhiksham tapaklesha saham pavatye ramanam pavatye Abhammakitanta samam pabatye chitadi sattvagamaham pabatye sarvanyata sarabhatam pabatye nisima karunya nitim pabatye ramanam pabatye Asmat papancha datikam pabatye vishwadikokte vishayam pabatye Kalakahataha bayanurutte Kitanta siksha kritinam pabatye Ramanam pabatye Vinetumatim Vishayadvajanyam Vijnanamurtim Dadatam pabatye Kandarpatarpa Jwalavadhanaya Kamalilila Vataram pabatye Ramanam pabatye पबत्ये आजन्मवन्ये वतनं पबत्ये कुन्दीपदं दन्ददहदं पबत्ये ब्रह्मासनत्यानरतं पबत्ये ब्रह्मात्मभूयं यतनं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये हरं पबत्ये विचरं पबत्ये स्वतान्तराय सदनं पबत्ये अमेयसामर्थ्यवहं पबत्ये विश्रुतविज्ञानिवरं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये दौर्भाग्यतापत्रय कर्ममोह संतापहन्तारमहं पबत्ये यतादसत्कल्पमपेतपापम् अवाप्तकामां विशुचं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये मनःप्रसादं भजतां ददानां मुक्तास्मितोदासि मुखं पबत्ये व्यातन्मशेषं वपनीयमोद पदीननाम्ना रमणं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये शिवं पबत्ये शिवदं पबत्ये कुदं पबत्ये गुणिनं पबत्ये मतीयहितपद्मजुषं पबत्ये शरण्यमीशं शरणं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये पबतिं रमणश्वैतां तन्वतां तत्त्वदर्शिना तत्कतुन्याय रसिका तत्तादिशा फलाप्तये रमणं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये रमणं पबत्ये ओम नमो भगवते श्री रमणाय.
Thank you, Gopika. Very well sung. I'd like to invite Sri Hari for the next song.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Today I'm going to sing Sri Ramana Charita Sara Kumi by Sadhuam Swamigal. I'm singing a part of it till Bhagavan reaches Arunachalam. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. கும்மியடி அருள் கும்மியடி ஒன்றாய் கூடி குரு பத கும்மியடி அம்மையடி நமக்கப்பனடி ரமணாய நமோ என கும்மியடி சாந்த சமுத்திர ரமணனடி அவதார சரிதை இசை போமடி காந்த அருள்வலை கண்ணனடி கலிகால துதித்த கடவுளடி வேந்தியர் சுந்தரர் மைந்தனடி பெயர் வெங்கடராமன் என்றோதிடடி ஆதி திருச்சுழி அப்பதியில் அழகம்மை வயற்றில் உதித்ததடி கும்மியடி அருள் கும்மியடி அருள் குடி குரு பத கும்மியடி அம்மையடி நமக்கப்பனடி ரமணாய நமோ என கும்மியடி சின்னஞ்சிறிய பிராயத்திலே குருதேவனின் சிந்தையின் ஆழத்திலே மன்னருணாச்சலம் என்பதுவே மிக மாண்பெகும் எண்ணம் இருந்ததடி அன்று மதுரையில் கற்றானடி 16 பிராயம் முற்றானடி பின்பொரு நாளில் திடீனவே சாவின் பீதி எழுந்திட பெற்றானடி கும்மியடி அருள் பூடி குருபத கும்மியடி அம்மையடி நமக்கப்பனடி ரமணாய நமோ என கும்மியடி சாவின் ரகசியம் ஏதனவே அதை தானே யாராய துணிந்தானடி. சாவது உடம்பன அப்படியே உடல் சாய்த்து மரணத்தை ஆய்ந்தானடி. நாடியும் மூச்சும் அடங்கிடவே உள்ளே நான் யாரென தேடி கண்டானடி. கூடிய ஆன்மகுகையினிலே இனி கூற்றனில்லா வாழ்வு கொண்டானடி. கும்மியடி அருள் கும்மியடி ஒன்ற குடி குரு பத கும்மியடி. அம்மையடி நமக்கு அப்பனடி ரமணாய நமோ என கும்மியடி. உள்ளது நான் அருணாச்சலமே என்னும் உண்மை கண்டெல்லாம் மறந்தானடி. கள்ளாமல் உள்ளம் கவர்ந்த அருணாச்சலம் காதல் அளித்தே நிறைஞ்சானடி. எட்டு படிப்பினில் என்ன சுகமென்றே ஏகான்ம நிஷ்டையில் ஆழ்ந்தானடி. வீட்டில் இருப்பது வீணனவே கண்டு விண்ணருணாச்சலம் வந்தானடி. கும்மியடி அருள் கும்மியடி ஒன்றாய் கூடி குரு பத கும்மியடி. அம்மையடி நமக்கு அப்பனடி ரமணாய நமோ என கும்மியடி. எந்தையை தேடி கிளம்பி விட்டேன் என்று எழுதி வைத்தான் பீரி வைத்தானடி. தந்தையிடம் தன்னை ஒப்புவிட்டே சிவ சாம்ராஜ்ய செங்கோலை ஏற்றானடி. கும்மியடி அருள் கும்மியடி ஒன்ற கூடி குரு பத கும்மியடி. அம்மையடி நமக்கு அப்பனடி ரமணாய நமோ என கும்மியடி. அம்மையடி நமக்கு அப்பனடி ரமணாய நமோ என கும்மியடி. ஓம் நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீ ரமணாய.
Thank you, Srividya and kids. This place is believed to have been the one where Shiva, God Shiva, diverted the floods away during the Great Deluge. Since Shiva swirled floods here, the place came to be known as Tiruchuri. Churi, in Tamil, it means swirl. Our Bhagavan's physical body goes, it started from Tiruchuri. This song is about Tiruchuri Nadani. I would like to invite Neha next to sing Tiruchuri Nadani.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Tiruchuri Nadani Ramana Satguru. Tiruchuri Nadani Ramana Satguru. Virupa Ramana Satguru. Virupakshavasane Ramana Satguru. Ramana Satguru. Ramana Satguru. Ramana Satguru. Ramana Satguru. Tiruchuri Nadane Ramana Satguru. Tiruchuri Nadane Ramana Satguru. Kanupena Vasana Ramana Satguru. Kanupena Vasana Ramana Satguru. Karuna Samudrane Ramana Satguru. Karuna Samudrane Ramana Satguru. Swarupane Ramana Satguru. Swarupane Ramana Satguru. Ramana Satguru. Ramana Satguru. Ramana Satguru. Ramana Satguru. Tiruchuri Nadane Ramana Satguru. Tiruchuri Nadane Ramana Satguru. Chitananda Rupane Ramana Satguru. Chitananda Rupane Ramana Satguru.
Dakshinamurti Rupa Ramana Sadguru. Dakshinamurti Rupa Ramana Sadguru. Mauna Tattva Bodhakane Ramana Sadguru. Mauna Tattva Bodhakane Ramana Sadguru. Ramana Sadguru. Ramana Sadguru. Ramana Sadguru. Ramana Sadguru. Tiruchurinadane Ramana Sadguru. Tiruchurinadane Ramana Sadguru. Virupakshavassane Ramana Sadguru. Virupakshavassane Ramana Sadguru. Ramana Sadguru. Ramana Sadguru. Guru. Ramana Sadguru. Ramana Sadguru. Ramana Sadguru. Ramana Sadguru. Ramana Sadguru. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Thank you.
Thank you, Neha. I would like to invite Subraja for next song.
Om Namo Sri Ramanaya. Bhagavan Tvadiya Charane Shraddhanata Namamaha. Bhagavan Tvadiya Charane Shraddhanata Namamaha. Sarvasya Jagataha Utpalakatvameva. Sarvasya Jagataha Utpalakatvameva. Lokasya Mahataha Sampalakatvameva. Vidinachakena Isha Bhagavan Tvamakshayama. Bhagavan Tvamakshayama. Bhagavan Tvadiya Charane Shraddhanata Namamaha. Shakti Tadacha Bhakti Sarveshu Sampradeya. Shakti Tadacha Bhakti Sarveshu Sampradeya. Vairam Viduya Manasaha Kumati Tadapameya. Ekatrayena Pritya Sarve Vayam Vatama. Sarve Vayam Vatama. Bhagavan Tvadiya Charane Shraddhanata Namamaha. Bhagavan Tvadiya Charane Shraddhanata Namamaha. Om Namo Sri Ramanaya.
Thank you. And this concludes today's satsang, today's Advent Day presentation from Washington, DC.